RT stands for Reader's Theater. Reader's Theater is when you're going to have a group of kids stand up in front of you with music stands. They're going to have scripts in front of them, and it's kind of like, you know, if you were watching Prairie Home Companion live, and you were watching 4 people or 3 people or 5 people, whatever, do a skit. And they're usually kind of crazy and kind of fun and a little bit wild, and sometimes they're singing in them and they're doing various physical things with them and making sounds or whatever, and they're usually kind of a hoot. We have mime, pantomime. As you can imagine, it's rather a silent event, although in the last few years we now allow music. And when I say we, I say the state. Now, the ASA rules now allow music to be played. Some kids will have a boombox going, but most of them are silent. Some are classic mime, you know, more in the Marcel Marceau venue, and then others are just totally bizarre and acting events.
Here's what I want to do. I want to have Patrick do some improvisational stuff for you. And, yeah, oh boy. Let's get some ballots. What should we, how about the 2 of you do a duet, something or other? Okay? And you hold this ballot, and we're going to talk about the ballots. And so first of all, just watch this, and then we're going to go over the ballot. They're going to,
more ballots?
What? If there are more duet ballots, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have, in your packet, you'll have judging instructions, which will tell you everything we're going to tell you here, and probably a little bit more, and tell you what to look for, and they get to move around, and they get to interact like this, and they get to look at each other, and they get to fall down, and they get to climb up, and they get to do it like it's a stage piece. They'll have a table and 2 chairs for duet piece is allowed, and we're going to watch them now, and then we're going to just run through judging them on this, and this might be a 30-second scene or whatever. Okay, when you're ready, gentlemen.
And I'm sorry, I don't have enough for everybody, so if you could maybe look with the person next to you.
Yeah, just look on. Thanks for doing
that.
That's fine. Okay, sorry for, and this is something else. When there's an interruption, let's say an announcement comes over the PA, or somebody stumbles into the room and throws them off like we just threw them off, give them a break for that. Okay? And if they successfully get through it, give them more credit for it, because they didn't get thrown off, and that's a biggie. Okay. And another thing,
if someone comes in the room, which isn't supposed to happen, you can give them the option to start over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it should not be their problem that someone came in the room inadvertently and interrupted their performance.
Okay, do something.
Former Chief Inspector Dreyfus, how are you doing today?
Clouseau! It's been years.
Yes, years it has been. We have met here today because I hear that there are disturbing reports of your lack of improvement, and I thought I would come here today to offer some form of moral support.
Lack of improvement. I was in fact going to be released at 2.
Yes, the insanity, the voice of insanity. I am not crying, my eyes are just watering.
Yeah, simply because I do not believe that simply because I attempted to kill you qualifies me to be in prison.
It is the rigors of the job, I am afraid.
I think it should get me a scholarship to Harvard trying to kill you.
Really?
For a minute.
I am a genius, you are right, but we are talking today about your release, and I'm very happy to hear that you will be rejoining us in the free world. I have just been promoted to your job, you see, and I would definitely consider hiring you back to the force.
You would consider hiring me?
Yes, former Chief Inspector. I, Chief Inspector Clouseau, would love to have you working for us once again.
If you remember correctly.
Brothers in arms, so to speak.
Let's call that good. All right. choice of material, was it appropriate for the actors? You're going to make your own judgment. Did it work? Was it too much of a stretch? If they chose to portray old ladies, these two, and they pulled it off, great. If they didn't, they haven't chosen the right material for it. So clarity of words. Could you hear what they were saying? Characterizations. Did they stay with their characters? And were the characters well developed? This was obviously Pink Panther, or some variant on Pink Panther. So you've got Wiseau and Dreyfus. And did they stick with it? Characterizations would include the accent that Patrick was using. Okay, that's part of the characterization. Timing, voice control, movement, which is blocking. Did they use the space effectively? Ability of partners to work together. I would give them a fairly high rank on that. Meaning of the scene communicated. Well, it was obvious where they were going with that. Total effectiveness. You're going to do this for each thing you see, and you can total the points up, but don't let the points determine the rank, okay? Don't let that be a guide for you, because the first piece you'll see will be without any reference to any other piece. The second piece you'll see, you can only compare it to the first piece you saw. But by the time you're in the fifth or sixth piece, you've got this whole ream of them that you've looked at. So what you have to do is scrub your mind after each performance. So write your stuff down. You can total up the points, but just don't pay much attention to it, and just put that aside and forget it. Watch the next one. Put that aside and forget it. Don't look back to this one and say, oh, well, I gave them a 3, and these guys were actually, well, just do it by your gut feel. Get to the end, all right? Write yourself a mnemonic, just a little mnemonic, so you could go, well, Pink Panther was obvious. That's all the words you would need. So it's Patrick Henderson, and Royal Henderson did Pink Panther. Write and you can write it down here in additional comments or something. Just something to remind you who did what. Here's how I do when I judge. I get to the end, and I just lay them all out. And usually there's one or two that just stand above the others. And I pull them out and put them aside. And then I'll go for the worst one. And there is a worst one. And you're not going to kill these kids if you give them the last rank and round. They all get it. It's part of the deal. And then there's a mess in the middle. And then you really have to just use your gut feeling. It's like, well, third, fourth, this was actually better. Trust your instincts. Don't overthink it. Then get done, and I adjust the points so that the first place one comes in with the highest points. And you can do that. Maybe use a pencil first and then come back in with ink. Line them all up. Make sure, okay, that's how I see them. Give them 1, 2, 3, 4 down the line. No ties. You're done. Write comments, though. If this was obviously an improv piece. They did this a long time ago, and I'm sure you were improving this to a large degree. So this does not have the polish, and to me, drag, because it has never been done before. But that scene, if they practiced it 8 or 10 times, would be really funny. And you saw the elements of the humor in there, and the slap on the back was good, but their timing would be such that you would feel that slap on the back, and he would have fallen on the table. Instead, they would have slapsticked it up some. But it was pretty good for what it was. But it just gives you an example. And some pieces will look rough. Some pieces will be very polished. Give them higher points for polish. Those are kids that have worked on their pieces. If they come in and blow you away, great. If they come in and stumble, those are the people that really need comments. How can they improve? Because we're still 3 months out from the state tournament. And so it's really useful. And don't, any school, don't just do, I'll just give comments to the Haynes kids. Everybody else can go fly. Be kind to all of them, and don't slam them. I don't think any of you would do that, but it's just like, be nice to them, be positive. But even the last place kids, pick the worst thing about it. I couldn't understand what you were saying. You've got to talk more slowly and clearly. That's really valuable for them to see. You're right. Don't do a ridiculous accent. If his accent was absolutely indecipherable to you, then he's not being effective. And so write it down. this is actually, that's enough right there for you to now do, if you read the instructions on all the individual events. It's basically the same pattern. And the speech making Gershon will talk about is a little bit different. And maybe we'll have Patrick do an oration, a little bit of an oration, which is the speech, but the interp events are very similar to that. The only thing with the interp events, do the same scene as an interp. Okay, this would be a duo interp.
Former Chief Inspector Dreyfus, it is so nice to see you again. It has been far too long, my old friend.
Clouseau, I honestly never expected to see you again.
Touching sentiment, my friend. I've come because I've heard troubling news about your lack of improvements.
Lack of improvement?
Apparently every time you hear my name, you start killing people. In your imagination, of course.
Fair enough. But I've made improvement. They said they'll release me tomorrow.
Yes, the words of a raving lunatic, I'm afraid. I think that it is part of the whole room space that is messing up your entire feng shui of your recovery, I'm afraid. What is this? It looks like my head.
Yeah?
No matter, no matter.
Okay, good enough. All right. This,
We can, however, apparently spin around like this one, can't we?
they can spin around. But that's duo. An interp event has very restricted blocking and is formalized and kind of strange. So that's the same scene twice. Once is a duet with blocking, the other as a duo interp where they're just facing you. So you're seeing both sides of a conversation. And what's crucial in duo interp is that one person is saying a line. And it's like the split screen. It's like those debates you saw with Obama and Romney. You're watching them, and it was so interesting watching both of them get better at being on camera. Because in the first one, Obama lost the debate because he was looking down while Romney was looking at him. Well, in a duo interp, you're seeing both sides of the conversation. And so the passive character who's listening should react. You should see, like you say something outrageous and you react to it in duo style, or vice versa.
You are French and you lack a mustache.
There. So, he didn't have a line, but he had to keep acting. And I love duo interp. It's one of my favorites. So, that gives you an interp. There's humorous interpretation, make people laugh. There's dramatic interpretation, make them cry or feel very strange.
Humorous interp would be Patrick doing both characters.
Yeah.
Yes. So do that.
Dreyfus, it is so nice to see you again today. Oh, Clouseau! I have heard that you have very poor performance in your recovery. No, I've been recovering fine. Yes, and I hear that every time my name is mentioned, you start to run around pretending to kill your own socks. You heard that? Yes, yeah, I heard
There's
that.
another way he could do this, which is rather than jumping around, which was pretty amusing, but a little bit frenetic. He could be this way and this way. So try it that way.
Dreyfus, it is so nice to see you again, my old friend. Clouseau! Yes, it has been far too long, I know. I never want to see you again. Yes, I wanted to see you the whole time, my friend. Please, leave. It is not appropriate for you to be here today. Yes, I've heard you are going to be released. This is very nice. Yes,
Good enough.
take a walk.
So that's HI, where one person can play 9 characters. And how quickly they switch between the characters and how effectively and how smoothly the whole thing goes, that is, that's one of the criterion of judgment. So you've seen the same scene in 3 different forms, and they could probably do it as a DI or whatever. But we won't. No. This is enough. And this actually prepares you.
Clouseau, you killed my puppies.
Mime. Clouseau killed my puppies that had cancer.
That's right. While my mother was sick in the hospital from swallowing the
This
keys
pretty
to my
much
beautiful car
equips
that my
you.
girlfriend
So
inside.
just to review, there are criteria on which you score them. You're not tied to the scores you give them for the reasons I said. Get to the end of the round, line them up in the order in which you like them, give a 1 to the one you like the best, higher number for down the line. Number 6 is usually 6 or 7 is the most you'll have in a round. write it at the top, take the time from the timer, make sure you put the name of the actor up here, and please sign this, because if there's any problem, we need to know who to come talk to, because there are problems, inevitably. Another thing, in general in judging, whatever you judge, please turn your ballots in. Don't go home with them. I mean, we end up, and we have this really computerized system now of plugging numbers in, and the whole machine barfs if it doesn't, if it can't eat every ballot, it freezes up. So we have to have every ballot turned in, and every year people space out, or you lose one ballot. If someone, another point, if someone doesn't show up, they have disqualified, but give them plenty of time because they'll have conflicting events. In the best case scenario, they come to you or they send somebody to you and say, you know, Judge Slobotnik's going to be late, he's got a conflicting event, please wait. And the round is an hour and a half. And so you don't want to, after an hour, you're going to be twiddling your thumbs. Bring a book, you know, write more comments on the other ones, use the time well, and just wait. And if, in the best case scenario, they'll come to you and say, so-and-so isn't going to show up, in which case you send them off the list. You'll have a list of all the contestants that you should be seeing, and we cross-reference all this and try to organize it. So you'll go in there with a list of 6 names. You'll have 6 ballots. You'll have the judging instructions. Get here 15 minutes ahead of your round, preferably 20 to 25.
Please.
It's better. Yeah, come early. Come before your round, because we go into this panic mode. Because really, the rounds, this whole machine is, timing is crucial, and being 5 or 10 minutes late, it's like sand in the gears. All right, we want to keep the machine moving smoothly, and we will call you up. We have this system of calling people and making sure you're coming and all.
So that was a great example of actually a number of different categories out of one set of material.
We made that up on the spot.
So that was pretty
improvising there.
Okay, so that's the interpretive events, right? Which is, I'll give you just a little bit more detail on that. In the interpretive events, like Tim said, there's not a lot of blocking, so they're not allowed to walk around the stage. They're not going to have props. They have to have they have a box around them, literally, that's supposed to be 3 by 3. Or if it's 2 people in a duo interp, they're allowed to be in a space that's about 6 by 6. That's it. They're not allowed to go over here. If they walk too far away, that's illegal. And for you, what the problem is, you need to know at least that much about the rules. Because otherwise, you're going to watch a bunch of pieces and you're going to think, well, those guys are much better. Look how active they were. They moved across. Well, actually, that wasn't legal. They weren't allowed to do that. So that's why the judging instructions will have all that in it. So you'll have this with you, so you can refer to this while the event is going on. Okay. Then we get to the real meat. Let's go to the speaking events first. Let's go there first. Okay, so this is called expository speaking. An expository speech is going to be a speech where someone's going to stand up there for approximately 8 minutes, and they're going to try to teach you something. They're going to have a topic. They can have props. They can move around. They can engage you, though they want to engage you as much as possible. They should be looking at you while they're talking to you and drawing you in. And they're trying to teach you something. They might be trying to teach you about how planes fly. And they might come in with a construction of a wing. And they might talk to you about how the curvature of the top of the wing and the angle of the bottom of the wing are different. And that's what provides lift as the thing moves down the, they're going to try to tell you something that maybe you don't know, maybe you do know. But it's supposed to be a speech where you're trying to explain something to someone. Okay? There is oration, which is a couple minutes longer than an expose, usually 8 to 10. And an oration is supposed to be a persuasive speech. They'll maybe walk around a little bit, but no props. But they will be really trying to convince you that climate change is an issue that we should be dealing with, or shouldn't. Or, whatever. I mean, it can be on literally anything they want. but it's supposed to be persuasive in nature as opposed to explanatory in nature. Right? We have two categories, extemp and extemp-com. Extemporary speaking is very challenging, is a very challenging event. The kids are going to go into the library and they're going to get they're going to be handed 3 topics. They're going to pick 3 pieces of paper out of an envelope, and with 3 topics, and they get to choose one. And it's going to be something like, should Angela Merkel be taken out of being the Chancellor of Germany? Or should we divorce ourselves from Israel and support the Palestinians more? Or there are going to be 3 heavy-duty political topics in extemp. Foreign, they could be foreign extemp, or they could be domestic extemp. But they're going to be very serious political issues. Those guys get a half an hour. They see these things, they choose one of the 3, put the other 2 back, and they get 30 minutes to write a speech. They're not allowed to leave the library. They are allowed to bring in, The Economist or whatever, magazines, whatever they can find to find information. But they're going to write a 5 to 7 minute speech in 30 minutes. They should have an introduction. Actually, it should start with what we call as a hook. There should be like an interesting opening statement to make you, want to hear what they have to say. Then they're going to give you kind of an introduction. Then they're going to list some points. They're going to tell you why they think what they think. And then at the end,
they could do one.
Let them do 2 minutes of it.
We want to see
what the next step.
One exterminated approximately 1.5 million Armenian Christians. The Turkish government to this day denies that that event ever happened. They called it a civil war. In 2011, the French Parliament passed a law that in fact made it illegal to deny the fact that this event happened. Now, I was in the city of Istanbul in Turkey the day that this law was passed, and I watched an infuriated Turkish prime minister make a speech on the topic, saying how the French were trying to promote the hatred of Muslims across the world. And so I'm going to talk to you today about how France's anti-genocide denial law is going to affect its relationship with Turkey. I have 3 points. One is that no government really enjoys it when another government calls them out on something they're not very proud of. 2, in regards to the actual event, a reason that Turkey refuses to believe that this ever happened is that the army in question that exterminated the Armenians was led by a man named Mustafa Kemal, who later became a man called Ataturk, and who founded the Turkish Republic in 1922. And it's equivalent to, I'll go in. Those are my 2 points that I can remember. Basically, in regards to the army and General Mustafa Kemal, it would be essential if the British Parliament was to pass a law saying that people in Britain had to think of George Washington as a terrorist because he was a rebel and rebelled against the king in 1776.
All right, so
You've probably never heard of, and then he goes back, and then he leaps ahead to the present day and starts talking about the implications. Then he says, "Here are my points." He would have fleshed those points out. He would have tied it back together, probably returned you to the battlefield in 1917 or to the Turkish Parliament when the French law was passed, and tied it up neatly. All right.
So that's extemporaneous speaking, and you're going to find that basically everybody who's going to be in that category is going to be pretty good. You're going to be pretty impressed by that. Because it takes a lot of discipline. You have to really study to be able to do it at that event. XCOM is different. I don't want to say it's less challenging because it's almost more of an improv. The advantage the extempors have is that they are dealing with facts. And so they can pull on facts to come up with their speech. In XCOM, extemporaneous commentary, the topics are supposedly lighter, but you have to be more clever in a way because you're really creating something that's almost moving somewhere between entertainment and speech. So in this last tournament, one of the rounds, all of the topics were proverbs. So there was just this basket of 150 proverbs, and a kid will go in there and they'll have to pick out one. Rome wasn't built in a day. And then they have to go and they have to create a 2 to 5 minute speech on that and somehow relate it to you, somehow relate it to them, make it interesting, also present some points, also started out with a hook. The structure of the speech is actually very similar, but one set will be lighter. They might be superheroes. And you can, the kid can talk about comic book superheroes, but then talk about how we really need more superheroes today in our world. Wouldn't it be great if we had a superhero out there? And then they could talk about some person in the world who they consider to be like a superhero. And, so it doesn't have to be a frivolous thing, but it's not going to be as fact-based as extemp, right, as extemporaneous speaking. So those are extemp and XCOM. You're going to get the kids, you're going to come in one at a time. And they will come to you. They're going to be sequestered in the library, writing their speeches, and every 5 minutes there's going to be a coach in the library that's going to kick one of them out in the hall, and then they got to make their way to you. And so they will just be coming in like taxis